Today we're speaking with graduate Hannah Alfonso. Thanks for joining me, Hannah.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, as many people know, we sent out our call across social media and our website about our Graduate of the Year program, and we received an excellent submission from Hannah, and I'm pleased to announce you're one of our finalists this year. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for sending in your submission. We were really impressed with it and you and your story. So we really appreciate you taking the time to write such a lovely submission.
Thank you.
So, just to start out, you started going to school in a traditional in-person brick and mortar school, but that didn't really work out for you. And then you transitioned into another school, which also didn't really have the necessary resources for you. Can you kind of explain some of the struggles you faced in that environment and why it wasn't a good fit for you?
So, since I was about 10 years old, I have struggled with OCD, anxiety, and depression. And at my small local private school that I went to for the first 3 years or 2.5 years of high school, it was really small and it lacked a lot of resources and funding. So, a lot of I didn't have like I didn't feel like I had the necessary support that I needed to help me with my mental health. For example, we didn't have a resource program that um, for students who were struggling with school or had learning disabilities. We had no resources for that, or they were really minimal. I think we had about one teacher that was qualified to handle that.
Oh wow, that's not a great situation at
Yeah.
all. How did you come across James Madison?
So I looked online to find some of the best reviewed online school programs, and James Madison was one of the ones that kept popping up. And I gave my mom and we gave the program a call, and the people who answered, I just remember them being really friendly and really accommodating and answering all of our questions. And in comparison to some of the other programs we were looking into, James Madison really seemed to be the most welcoming. And I really liked how I could learn at my own pace, and how they also had a college prep program, which is what I was doing when I went to a traditional high school. So I could kind of continue that.
Oh, that's great. So, when you proposed this to your mom, what did she think when you said, I want to go to an online school?
So she understood and kind of the situation at my private school, and how, because she had been trying to reach out to them to try to get sort of like accommodations for me and help for me, but she was unable to. So we were looking at other alternatives, and online schools, because I did tell her that I would be able to learn at my own pace, and that I would be able to, you know, like focus on my mental health more. So she was pretty open to the idea of me
That's
doing
that's
online
really
school.
great. Did you have any trouble transitioning from, in-person school to online? Like you said, a big part of the appeal about James Madison is the self-paced scheduling, but
Mhm.
that sometimes can be a little bit difficult
Yeah.
initially to kind of get a grasp on.
Mhm.
Did you have any trouble with that? Did you have issues with adapting, and how did you kind of get past that?
So I would say I'm a pretty disciplined person. So I'm pretty good at, getting up, doing my schoolwork, having a routine. Um, Throughout most of my high school, it was during COVID. So there were points in time where we did have to do online school. So it was something that I'd say, a little bit more used to. But of course, adapting to kind of having to, read the material on my own, figure the assignments out, and be responsible for everything, creating my own schedule. That was definitely something I had to adjust to. But I like the
Well,
added responsibility.
were there any subjects you had a hard time with? Like, did you ever need to speak to your instructors?
Oh,
Were
yeah.
they available if you needed that
Mhm.
help?
So typically, I do tend to struggle with math, and I did struggle a little bit with physics, but the teachers are very responsive. They have multiple ways to contact them. You could, of course, call the tutoring line, I believe, or some of them have the option to text them, to email them. So there's a bunch of different ways that I was able to reach out to my teachers, and the feedback they provide at the end of the exams and the opportunity to sort of correct them, I really enjoyed.
Oh, I love that. That's really great because I think that that's a concern that a lot of people have, especially
Mhm,
parents, that like, are you going to have those resources available to you
mhm,
where, you're in an in-person classroom, you just raise your hand and ask the teacher, or you
yeah.
hang back a little bit and ask.
Mhm,
And was that a concern your mom had that, would those resources be in place, or was just the appeal of, you being able to work in the best way for you, was that kind of superseded that?
mhm, yeah. So, of course, it was a little bit of a concern that, you know, if there would be teachers to help me along the way. But I would say, as a whole, when I went to my private school, a lot of the teachers were unavailable most of the time. So I was kind of used to trying to figure out things on my own, trying to just read all the material, learn it myself, and then complete any paperwork that's sort of thrown at me. But with James Madison, the teachers are definitely responsive. So I did really like that. And the feedback is really good. As opposed to just like a number for
Mhm.
your grade, it would be like, question by question, like a breakdown.
That's so important because
Yes.
I mean we all make mistakes. That's
Mhm.
that's normal. It's going to happen throughout life. But it's great when you have the explanation as to
Mhm.
why something should be the way it is. I think
Yes,
it, at least for me personally, from a learning perspective, it helps me not make the same mistake again because
definitely.
I
Yes.
understand why what I was doing was maybe not correct or why something else is more correct.
Mhm.
What courses were your favorite? You said you did the college prep, so that's
Yes.
a little bit more. I mean, uh, a lot of people assume online school is just kind of like a breeze and you just get through it,
Yeah,
which it's not. But I do have to say, obviously the college prep track is a little bit more intense.
definitely was a challenge. Yes. So my favorite courses were definitely the history classes. Um, I have a new appreciation for history now that I've learned that now that I've done it through James Madison, and I look forward to doing it every day. I just love the way everything was written out and how I could easily understand it. And I just really like the history classes.
That's great. I personally am a fan of history, so I can
Yeah.
relate to that. But it is really nice, I think, especially to history can be kind of a boring
Yes.
subject, depending on how it's presented. So it's
Hmm.
really great when it's something that, like you said, you look forward to doing it
Yeah.
every day. How did you structure your studies? Because I know some people like to just focus on one or two courses, get through those, and then move on to another one or two and go that way. Or some people like to kind of stick to a more, traditional format of you do a little bit of each one
Hmm.
each session of studying. Was there one that worked better for you or that you preferred?
So I did the first way. I did one class at a time. I that one tended to work better for me so that I could focus on one thing at once as opposed to like a million different subjects and trying to figure out, oh, I need to do this for this one or this for this one. It was just so much easier to do one at a time.
I have to say, the more I'm exposed to that and the more I speak to students and hear that, it does really make sense to me, especially
Mhm.
because then I go back and I think about when I was in high school and how, you went from class to class to class, and it never was enough to really, at least on like, particularly with the subjects that were difficult for me, which were also like math, physics, those same things as you,
Mhm.
where, I, that little block of time throughout the day was not necessarily enough for me to really fully understand what was going on, or I would just get the hang of it and then, bell would ring, you're out, and
Yeah.
that's it. Whereas I think I hear more and more from students like yourself that, having the time to really focus on one subject and really delve into it is very helpful in actually absorbing the information rather than just,
Mhm.
studying, passing a test, and then kind of just forgetting all about it.
Yeah, definitely.
So, For traditional aged high school students like yourself, socialization or a lack of socialization is kind of a
Mhm.
concern for parents when it comes to online school. Did you, and for the students themselves, was this something that you were concerned about or your mom was concerned about?
Not really, since I did attend a more traditional school the first couple of years of high school. I still stayed in touch with a lot of my friends from there and other friends that I had made from outside of school. But I would say definitely if socialization is a concern, that joining clubs outside sports, different things like that is something that would be like something that would be helpful. Like I had a job and things like that where I could get socialization.
Did you feel that the self-paced scheduling made it easier for you to do things like work?
Oh, definitely. So I had a lot more time to work, to do things that I enjoyed, to be with my friends, since I felt like day in and day out when I went to private school, it was constantly school. I'd go to school from 8 in the morning to 3:30, and then I would have some sort of activity after school and then be doing homework till around 11 or 12 at night. And it would just repeat, wake up at 6 in the morning. So with the self pace, I definitely feel like I had a lot more time to do things that I enjoyed and again to focus on my mental health.
That's so important. So not only did you graduate a semester early, but you also graduated with salutatory honors. How do both of those things make you feel?
Really, really proud of myself because I honestly feel like I have to keep pushing myself to do the very best that I can, and seeing that as kind of like validation that my hard work is paid off.
Oh, that's great. How about your mom? How does she feel? How did she feel when she found out that, not only were you finishing up a semester early, but at such a high standard?
Yeah, she was pretty happy for me.
So, in your submission, you said that James Madison gave you confidence. Can you explain what you mean by that and the impact it's had on you?
So, so James Madison basically reinstilled my love for learning and how I was able to do it at my own pace. I could take time and actually learn as opposed to cramming and trying to learn something as fast as possible before, the next topic comes on. I always felt so defeated when I went to private school because of number one, the lack of resources, and how if I was, my mental health was struggling that day, or if my OCD was a little worse that day, there was nothing I could really do about it, and not really any support systems over there. The work would just be there. I'd have to somehow find a way to complete it, and it just made me feel so defeated, spending endless nights, what felt like just trying to do the work, have it turned in the next morning, and repeat the whole thing all over again. So with James Madison and being able to do it at my own pace, say I was having like an off day, or my mental health was not so great that day, or my OCD was a little worse, I could just take the day for myself or take it a little bit slower without having the pressure of a deadline.
That was actually going to be a question that I asked. Did you find yourself needing to sometimes just take a day and say, like, hey, you know what? Today is not a day that's working for
Oh,
me on an
absolutely,
emotional or mental health
absolutely.
level. Like, I need to take a step back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, how important was that? I mean, you kind of already talked about it, but like, did you find that you were able to then come back to it kind of refreshed? Or
Yes.
was, I mean, I'm sure there was probably a variation between coming to it refreshed and then other days where it was like, okay, now I have to do this. But did you feel like it gave you that kind of like recharge that you needed?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wasn't able to take very many mental health days, obviously, because attendance is a big thing in traditional school. And at my private school, they were pretty strict about attendance. And if you, say, missed a certain number of days, there would be a possibility of you having to repeat the classes over again, regardless of how well you did. So definitely, yeah, it was good to take to be able to take mental health days, because James
I
Madison
think
was
that's really interesting that you bring up the point about attendance because it's not, I mean, it's there and it's always in the back of my head, but I kind of forget about it, which is silly because I have a child who's in elementary school and I know how like heavily they stress attendance and I understand the importance of that. However, it's not always, it sometimes it doesn't really matter. Like, okay, you could be there, but if your mind is not in
yes, if your
is
mind is
not set
tired.
correctly
Yeah.
for that, are you like your body is physically there but your mind isn't and you're not really absorbing
Yeah.
anything
Hmm.
anyway, so it's kind of like, well, what's the point to just
Hmm.
be, a body in a desk, whereas if you kind of take that time you can come back to it and be more focused and I think probably be a better student if there's less focus on just that attendance.
Yes.
So you now that you've graduated, you in your submission talked about college. What are those plans? Have you applied anywhere yet or heard back if you have?
So this fall, I'll be attending American University in DC. I'll be studying communications. I believe my concentration, I haven't officially decided yet, but I believe I'm going to do broadcast journalism. So that's originally I wanted to go to med school and do pre med, but I did change my mind, which of course is okay. And I'm going to be
Absolutely.
doing communications instead. My dream job is to be like an international affairs reporter, like, um, to be sent out to a different country and kind of report on what's going on there. Because I do love to travel and I do love to meet new people.
That's fantastic and congratulations. That is really impressive and really amazing. Do you feel like James Madison has prepared you for that next step of life? Do you feel like you are going to be prepared going into college with the high school education you received?
Definitely, especially because I did the college prep program and it was a little bit more rigorous. And I did take, the higher math and the higher science, which will definitely be helpful, and as well as a foreign language that does come with the college prep program. That would definitely be like very helpful. Like I did not have to take the original entrance exam because I did already have some of those credits. um, and with being able to set my own routine and set my own schedule, which is I think something that's super important to have in college, and be able to be disciplined enough to consistently attend your classes and do your work on time, is something that James Madison has really helped me with.
Oh, that's great. And if you could recommend James Madison to anyone, or if somebody came to you and said, I'm thinking about this, what would you recommend?
I would absolutely recommend James Madison.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story and your insights. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thanks.